Hey everyone, welcome back to Project Honesty, a podcast designed for young adults by a young adult to gain brutally honest, friend-like advice, as well as provide a platform for young adults to form opinions, color outside of the lines, take deep dives into current events, and most importantly, have fun. This is Project Honesty, navigating reality with real conversations and diverse opinions. Hey guys, welcome to Project Honesty's 5th episode. Now, in honor of an event that happened last week, some of you may know what it is, some of you may not, and that's okay. We're going to be discussing a little bit about what this event was. On March 8th, it was International Women's Day. That inspired this episode and this episode's topic to be feminism. We're going to be covering what feminism is, where did it start, who is the founder of feminism, why feminism is important, what modern feminism addresses, and the impacts feminism has made on society so far. So International Women's Day was not my only inspiration behind this episode. I wanted to talk about this because I am a feminist. I believe that we need more feminism in this world because women don't get as much credit as we deserve. And feminism really advocates for women who can't speak for themselves, and it addresses problems within that. Just before I start off, I want to give a quick trigger warning. There will be mentions of rape culture and sexual assault, not specific examples, but it will come up when I discuss some of the things that feminism fights against. So just wanted to give that little warning before I start off. What is feminism and where did it originate and who, quote unquote, founded feminism? Feminism is rooted in the belief that all genders are equal. It also stands for respecting women along with their stories, voices, and experiences, and really empowering women to be who they are and true to themselves without judgment from others. There's a theory supported by many scholars around the 4 waves of feminism. Now, an article published by Pacific University and information released by the National Women's History Museum. The first real wave of feminism was believed to have started around 1848 at the Seneca Falls Convention in New York. This convention was organized and piloted by a woman named Elizabeth Cady Stanton. In this convention, she outlined what the movement will stand for, along with the movement's ideology and the strategies to integrate feminism into society and politics. So that was really the first wave that we can see of feminism. The Me Too movement also supports the wave theory by outlining the first wave of modern feminism. Some of you may be wondering, what is modern feminism? The definition of feminism in general has changed a little bit over the years. It's definitely changed since 1848. So modern feminism stands to promote original feminist theories, but also be inclusive of Black and queer beliefs on top of the original feminist theories. So to integrate cultural diversity, gender equality with marginalized communities, especially, and just to promote the diversity of women in the BIPOC community. Modern feminism is really about empowering those who haven't been recognized a lot or forgotten about. So though feminism is a good thing, it wasn't always inclusive. Within the last 10 years, though, different ideologies and identities have been accepted to also be a part of the feminist movement. Why is feminism important? Why do we need feminism? I think that this is an especially important topic to discuss on here. Feminism impacts the life of all women, whether they recognize it or not. Some of these reasons why it's important are reasons why I'm a feminist. Feminism has made me realize a lot of things. And how feminism has impacted my life, I'll pull a little bit of real life examples for you guys. And then we're also going to mention what is lacking still with the feminist movement. So I've split these examples into a couple different categories. Some of the examples in these categories were experiences shared with me, experiences shared on social media, but also things I've experienced. I think I have 5 4, 5, 6. So 6-ish different categories that we're going to be getting into today. Main pillars of what feminism can affect when it comes to society. Starting with the workplace. Women being sexualized in the workplace, some workplaces more than others, is definitely common. Unwanted sexual comments, especially from your bosses, is something that is unfortunately happening and has been happening for many years. The sexual assaults that come out of workplaces and sexual assault in general occurs most often from people that we've already known, so our bosses. It is also a fact that women who face poverty, so women who are working but are on the poverty line, may face a higher risk of being taken advantage of by their bosses in order to keep their job. So some stats from Pasternak Law shows that 54 to 81% of women claim to experience some level of harassment in the workplace. And that same data also shows that 97% of those assaults were committed by men. These stats come from reported cases of sexual assault in the workplace. So there is still cases missing from people that haven't reported it. So already we see that heightened sexual assault in the workplace is definitely apparent and definitely impacts women and their livelihood. Another part of feminism in the workplace is that a lot of corporate jobs are dominated by men. Now, my mom, she works a corporate job. She is surrounded by men. I got her to give me a little bit of information for this, and I asked her for her opinion. Most of the leadership roles within corporate companies are dominated by men, but in administrative roles, many of those roles are taken by women. When in a leadership role, men get better pay, unlike the women. So that creates the gender pay gap. Now, I'm going to leave a link in the description just so you guys can read into the gender pay gap more, because I don't really want to get into it on here, but I have left a link from the Canadian Women's Foundation in the description if you want to go read more about the gender pay gap. Overall, this domination of men in the work environment has just fostered a negative workplace. Feminism really fights for women who are in the workplace, corporate or not, to have a voice, to really stand up for themselves. This can also tie into school. School is discriminatory against women, which is unfortunate. Now, we are getting better. School boards are getting better, recognizing that there are issues with certain things when it comes to school. One of the things is dress code and sexualizing young girls for what they choose to wear. A memory that I have from a very young age, I was in elementary school, and I was told that if I was going to wear a tank top, it had to be 2 fingers width for me to be able to wear it. The strap had to be, because I was showing too much of my shoulders with a spaghetti strap. So I had to get a wider tank top strap so that I could wear a tank top to school. Another thing about feminism in the workplace, and a friend actually brought this up a couple days ago, and I'm mentioning it on here. So the friend who's listening to this right now, you know who you are. And thank you so much for bringing this up, because I kind of forgot about it. From a young age, girls are taught to tolerate bad behavior from their male peers, because we're told that that's what boys do when they like us. They are mean to us. They make fun of us. They bully us, because it's just an excuse for them to be gross. And I mean, young boys should be taught that that's not okay behavior and that's not normal behavior. But the excuse I always heard when I was growing up, especially from teachers, was boys will be boys. That excuse to me is completely unacceptable. Boys will not be boys, okay? This is not about protecting your daughter. This is about educating your sons. You might have seen those signs from feminist protests, but this is about education. This isn't about just letting these boys feel like this is what's okay. No, their parents and their authority figures should be educating them around why that's not okay, and that's not the culture you want to feed into, because that's toxic. That's not what we should be tolerating as women. Their bad behavior isn't an excuse, and I, frankly, am not going to put up with it. Now, another thing I've noticed, I noticed this more now in high school. I didn't really notice it in elementary school, but I notice it a lot now, is that girls find themselves in competition with one another to seek attention or validation from guys. I don't find myself in that position a lot, because I don't really care about guys or having a boyfriend that much. But I definitely observe it with a lot of girls at my school, and it's unfortunate. The need for validation from our male peers is definitely instilled in us from a young age, especially with the boys will be boys and that toleration of bad behavior. It's definitely drilled into you as a little girl, and I think that's something that feminism is changing. Feminism isn't really taught in schools. Sure, it's mentioned in some classes, but there's a lack of conversation around feminism, and sometimes even there's discrimination faced by feminists in school due to the bro culture that has been built in to not only the public education system, but also society, fostering that sexist, negative environment that is not acceptable. School environments and work environments definitely have similarities when it comes to that bro culture and the male domination of your peers. Feminism is all about empowerment, right? A lot of women, and I even find myself in this position sometimes, is I feel intimidated in workplaces or schools where there's a domination of guys, because there's definitely concerns around being underestimated, overpowered, taken advantage of, or not having clear opportunities or a voice. Now, coming from an all-girls school, those principles were instilled in me for 3 years, and that's something that I still carry with me and that make me a more confident person. But I definitely don't notice that kind of education in public schools. That's why there's that competition for male validation, is because that confidence wasn't built up in these girls for 3 years. Connecting to school and work is friendships. No, I'm a big believer in girls support girls. I used to have a pin of it on my backpack, but it's something I really believe. Girls should support girls. And those toxic and competitive female friendships is not something that I want. I find I've been in those positions before and hated every second of it, because that's not what friendships are about, right? Like, we have to support each other. We have to lift each other up. And so girls support girls and building really intimate and strong female bonds is something that is vital to feminism. One thing that I came across in my research for this episode and stories that I've heard is the common occurrence, I mean, not that common, but it definitely happens, is guys taking advantage of their female friendships for sex. This can tie into sexual assault and rape culture. That's not to say that feminism is discouraging these friendships. That's definitely not what it's about. It's promoting real and true, healthy, non-sexual friendships with your male friends. Because you can be friends with guys. I'm friends with some guys, and our relationships are not sexual, obviously, and it's a very true friendship. But I do notice that some male friendships, especially with my peers, the guy is definitely looking for something else that the girl is not signing up for or consenting to. When we get into friendships, that's not your green light to have sex. That's your green light to be our friend. And it's up to them to act on that appropriately. Moving away from the people side of this, something that feminism also addresses is gender-based marketing. In grade 9, I wrote a 3-page speech all about gender-based marketing and how it's like pointless. If you were in the room when you heard that speech, I'm sorry I made you sit through that. But I kind of just wanted to sum it up on here really quick, just because it's something that feminism does address. Some of the obvious examples of marketing and gender-based pricing is overpriced but lower quality products. A specific example of this when it comes to females is razors and clothes. It is ridiculous the amount of money women spend on razors for them to work less than a men's razor. And our clothes sometimes are so shittily made, but we are still forced to pay more for them. Some examples for pointless gender-based marketing is the Bic pens for women. I don't know if any of you remember Bic doing this, but I do. Bic made these pens that were like glittery and sparkly and pink and purple and whatever, and it was marketed as pens for women. And so many women were confused by this. There were so many skits made about how stupid a woman's pen was. Like, am I incapable of writing with a normal pen? Through Bic's history, so Bic is a hygiene and stationery company. Most of its products that are marketed towards women are hyper feminized, and they promote that domesticity that women are expected to have and the standards that women are expected to live up to even be thought of as beautiful, which is unfortunate. Feminism really addresses how ridiculous and exclusionary these hyper feminized marketing strategies are. And like, women are able to use products that aren't pink and sparkly. Newsflash, if anybody didn't know, I can use a blue pen and still be fine. So feminism really is addressing the problem around hyper feminized marketing strategies to attract women to buy their products. And it's fitting into the gender stereotyping of women and the expectations set for us by society. Moving on, women in media and just events in feminism in general. Obviously, International Women's Day is an example of that. International Women's Day is really to promote the diversity of women across the world and just have that appreciation for the women in this world. Because if you think about it, none of us would be here without a woman. Now, some people are going to argue, yeah, you need a man too. Okay, you're right. But who's giving birth to you? You know what? It's your mom. So last week you probably should have texted her, but if you didn't, it's okay. Text her now. Collecting. So I have 3 main examples. One of them I kind of mentioned earlier, but we're going to dive into that now. And then 2 others that I think are important to mention. One of the biggest examples and events, you could say, in feminism is the Barbie movie. You guys heard me talk about America Ferrera and how I think she's incredible. Her monologue in the Barbie movie really outlined the issues that women face daily, just trying to exist in this society. And this monologue really addressed problems that feminism is addressing. And there was a lot of notable women who worked on this film, America Ferrera, but the director was actually female, Greta Gerwig. Barbie actually broke records. It hit over $1 billion at the box office, and it was the highest grossing film worldwide for 2023. That is an incredible event for women. That is an incredible feat, and especially for Greta Gerwig, that's an incredible thing to have and achieve as a director. And it was just amazing. The Barbie movie, if you guys haven't watched it, please go watch it. It's amazing and you guys will love it. I think it's on, I don't know, is it on Prime or Disney Plus? It's on something. Google it and see where you can watch it. So some other events in feminism. So I did mention this one a little bit earlier, but I didn't really get into it, is the Me Too movement. This is a common milestone that people know of. So in 2006, Tarana Burke started the hashtag Me Too movement to support women who survived sexual assault, specifically women of color, but it does apply to everybody. This movement spread fast and globally, and it was to fight against this normalization of sexual violence and just spread awareness. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, the bro culture we have, the domination of men in the workplace, especially in corporate workplaces, and and the boys will be boys excuse. Well, the hashtag #MeToo movement really is fighting against that normalization of boys will be boys. The Me Too movement also spiked again in 2017 when American TV producer Harvey Weinstein was faced with reports of him sexually abusing women. So the Me Too movement really is recognizing and advocating for the women who have to live with the trauma of sexual assault every day. It's definitely something that's going to impact a woman's life for the rest of her life. She's always going to remember that. And so the hashtag #MeToo movement is something that really supported women in their journey to finding themselves again after that sexual violence. Now, another thing that I'm going to get into quickly, and I'm only going to mention it briefly because this is something we're going to get into later on this podcast, is Roe v. Wade being overturned. So I'm only going to say that because I'm going to discuss this actually in next week's podcast. If you want to go look and Google what Roe v. Wade is, you can, but we will be discussing that next week. On that note, I want to leave you guys with some questions. So, what is feminism to you? How do you incorporate feminism in your life? How does feminism impact you? So, what aspects of your life are affected, if any, by feminism? And is there something that you would change? And if there is, what would it be? Personally, I see that these issues that feminism address are not just feminist issues, they're human issues, and something that I think we should all care about and consider. I do want to bring up, with every positive action, it is met with equal negative action. Even though I just said all the great things that feminism addresses and how it's important to us, there is some negatives to feminism. Some feminists are extremists, so some extreme views of feminism are out there, so it's taking the movement too far to the point where it's actually exclusionary rather than the inclusive, diverse, and empowering community it's supposed to be. A common misconception that feminists hate men. This also plays into the extremist side of feminism. Men aren't always the bad guys. Yes, I just read a stat saying that 97% of sexual assaults are committed by men. That doesn't mean that they're always the bad guys. Women do bad things too. Feminism is just trying to create equality between the two rather than tear one down to bring the other up. And a problem that you can observe in feminism a lot is feeding into the victimhood, and it portrays women as helpless or entitled rather than empowering them like the feminist movement promotes, is that empowerment of women's voices and their experiences. And a big thing, just kind of an umbrella statement on that, is cancel culture. Just because I said that we should all be feminists, that's a belief of mine, I think we should all be feminists, doesn't mean that everybody wants to. And that's okay. We all make choices, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person if you're not a feminist. With cancel culture, we all have to respect that people are going to make choices. We have to respect them, even if they don't align with our values. And so I just wanted to bring that up really quick before I end this episode. Next week, I will be away, but y'all will still get an episode on Friday at 3. Next week's episode, we're going to dive further into feminist issues, but we're really going to be focusing on women's healthcare and how healthcare concerns are dealt with when you're a woman. Something that is important to me, but also my family. Yeah, that is next week's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Project Honesty. You can find the podcast on Spotify at Project Honesty or on YouTube at Project_Honesty. And if you want to keep up with new episodes, you can head over to Project Honesty's Instagram at Project_Honesty24. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you're having a good day.